Tensions rise within the Democratic Party. A district judge has ruled on the lawsuit for CNN and Jim Acosta against the White House. And lastly, Senator Cory Booker has a plan to end income inequality, so he thinks. This is A Better World. I'm your host, Luis Acevedo. Starting off today, we're going to talk about the tensions increasing within the Democratic Party. So, as we know, earlier this week, and still continuing, there's disputes on whether or not Democrats want Nancy Pelosi to be their Speaker of the House in the lower chamber. There was also a little bit of dispute on whether or not they should elect Senator Chuck Schumer to be their minority leader once again, although he was elected into that spot. Nancy Pelosi, however, still isn't. There's a lot of dispute. Actually, there's about almost half of Democrats who don't believe she should be the Speaker of the House. So on top of this already happening right now within the leadership amongst the Democratic Party, there is another battle happening right now, and it's over climate change, which isn't even something that was on their platform in 2018. Now, the person leading the way for this battle on climate change is Congresswoman newly elected Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. She's trying to implement a Green New Deal and also start a new committee for climate change. This, both the proposal of a New Deal and a proposal of a committee, has stirred the pot within the Democratic Party once again. You have the next in line to take over the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Representative Peter DeFazio. He's a Democrat of Oregon. He said the following regarding the Green Deal. We can have grand goals, but let's be realistic about how we get there. The reason he says this is because the Green Deal is looking to end all carbon usage within a decade, meaning eliminate all fossil fuel usage within 10 years. That is a very ambitious goal and very unlikely. That is not taking in consideration on the people it's going to affect, not only those who own the company, but those who are employed by the companies who get oil and other means of fossil fuel. And so it's going to disproportionately hurt them, which I get. You're going to hurt people when you change the industry. Understandable. It happens all the time with bookstores started going out of business because of Amazon, etc. We see this throughout history. It's part of a capitalistic nature, out with the old, in with the new. I get it. I'm all for it. However, we have to take these things very seriously. We're talking about the infrastructure of America. And we rely wholeheartedly, for the most part, on fossil fuels. So to think that we can do this within the next 10 years is a little too much. A little too much. And they don't even have a full plan on how they're going to do this, yet they still want it to be implemented. And as far as the committee goes, there are two congressmen on top. There's Representative Peter DeFazio, and there's also the incoming Energy and Commerce Chairman, Frank Pallone, who's a representative of New Jersey. He and DeFazio both agree that Ocasio-Cortez's plan for a new committee is unnecessary because both of their positions will oversee the climate change and what they can do to work to fix it. Now, the rebuttal from some activists and Democrats is that the only reason that Democrats are not acting in unison when it comes to this measure is because they're funded, some of them are funded by big oil companies, fossil fuel companies, etc., and they don't really care about what's going on, which is, I think, my opinion, completely wrong, although it could be true that maybe they're doing it for bad reasons, that because they're getting paid by these big fossil fuel companies. That could very well be. It could 100% be the case. But I think more so it is the case that you have to look at all the variables when it comes into trying to do something this radical. In my opinion, the best way to slowly integrate change would be to first create a diverse market when it comes to energy. Start, diversifying the market when it comes to energy, as in, implementing renewable energy sources here and there to certain cities to see how that's going to work, slowly start integrating it into our country as opposed to trying to radically change our country within the 10 years. We don't even know what we're going to do with the excess of oil. What are we going to do with all that? I mean, seriously, what about the excess of coal? These are all very important things. What if we don't have a way to store the renewable energy, which was a problem in Germany when they went to completely wind power and renewable energy? They had a hard time storing it and being able to use it when there was no sun or when there was no wind. These were two huge factors when it comes into renewable energy, and they still are. So these are things that we really need to consider. And what happens if that system goes down and we have no more coal? I know we don't like the thought of coal anymore, and we think that we don't need it and that it's more of a primitive way of doing things and it's unnecessary, but we have coal for military reasons and defense reasons. If, God forbid, something bad happens to the nation, that would be a way that we can power it. From my understanding, that's the reason why we still have coal. I could be wrong on that, but I'm almost certain that that's exactly why President Trump is still encouraging the coal industry. This is completely hurting the Democratic Party, and it doesn't help their opportunities in 2020. The reason I say this is because they don't even have unison on who they want leading the House. They can't agree on climate change. Their main issues that they were going to be covering after the midterms were oversight on President Trump and health care, and now they're going to climate change, which is important. I think it's very important, and we should really consider doing something about that because our future generations do depend on us switching over to renewable energy. In 10 years, is it really realistic? Probably not. It really isn't. So there is a divide ideologically within the Democratic Party. There's almost as if there's two separate parties within the Democrats. The reason I say this is because you have the progressive radicals that are way left-leaning, and then you have the more conservative, moderate wing of the Democratic Party that understands that we cannot make drastic changes that quickly, and doing extremely progressive, I put quotations in the air as I say that for those of you listening, progressive plans like fighting income inequality and health care for all and free college for all are going to be completely detrimental to our country. There are plenty of Democrats who understand this. Unfortunately, a lot of their base is becoming radicalized, and they're becoming radicalized due to the schools teaching everybody to be activists and stand up and fight for something when these young people don't even have a grip on their own life, yet they want to try to take on the task of fixing the world when they don't even understand who they are or what they want to do with their lives. They're just following the crowd. So it's a very sickening thing that's happening. But more importantly, well, not more importantly, but for their chances in the 2020 election, it will completely dwindle those chances if they keep up this division within the party. They are literally going at each other within their own party. They can't agree on things. They can't even agree on leadership. How are they going to agree on who to nominate for their potential president come 2020? I have to add, on a side note, that Republicans may be in trouble as well when it comes to re-election in 2020. I say this because Senator Jeff Flake has hinted at running against President Trump in 2020. Same goes for the current governor of Ohio, John Kasich, who has also alluded to running in 2020. This would be equally as stupid for the Democrats. This will only further the divide within the Republicans. I said Democrats, I meant to say Republicans. This will only hurt Republicans. You'll have a divide within the party. Not saying the party's in complete unison right now, but for the most part they are. And to have these two outliers try to come in and say that they need somebody more moderate as a Republican to be the president is going to completely destroy the odds of President Trump being reelected and any Republican being reelected. The Democrats can mess up all they want if another person within the Republican Party runs against President Trump. I guarantee it. If somebody else, like Senator Jeff Flake or now Governor of Ohio, John Kasich, runs against President Trump in 2020, Republicans lose it all. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Because then you just lose confidence in the party as a whole. So that would be the Democrats' best bet if they have these continuous battles within their own party and cannot come to an agreement on anything. Now, something else that is a radical move for Democrats is this baby bonds bill that Senator Cory Booker wants to propose. And what it does is, I'm reading this from Yahoo Finance, and the bill proposes giving each child born in the U.S. a $1,000 savings account. Each year, the government would deposit as much as $2,000 into each account, depending on the family's income. And this is a quote from Cory Booker. The poorest of the poor could get up to $2,000 every year. By the time they're 18 years old, they could have a nest egg of $50,000. Depending on the income scale, you'll have everything from a few thousand to the richest of the rich, upwards to $50,000 for the families with lower incomes. He claims this is a capitalistic move, when in reality it isn't. This is just redistributing wealth. The way he wants to pay for this is to increase the estate tax, which only hurts working and middle class people. I say this because when you have a business owner who passes away and leaves that business to his heir, whoever that may be, his son, his daughter, whatever, now they have to pay taxes because they died, because the original owner died. And depending on how big those taxes are, they may need to hold off work, they may need to lay off workers, fire all their staff, or shut down the company entirely. This isn't a smart move. It disproportionately hurts working and middle class America. On top of that, you're hurting these families too that own farms. Farmers are hurt by this as well. I get what Senator Cory Booker is aiming at when he says increasing the estate tax. He's looking at the top of the top 1%ers who are making billions of dollars a year, and when they die, they should be paying taxes. I disagree with it. I get that's really who he wants to target here, and doesn't want to maybe hurt middle class and working class Americans. Maybe he does. Maybe he has some evil plan. I don't think he does. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. Maybe he's not understanding the ramifications of what the actual proposal could do to working and middle class America. On top of that, you're talking about spending an additional, billions of dollars? If I'm not mistaken, this bill's going to cost estimated, this is from the article once again. Booker estimates that the price tag for legislation could be as high as $70 billion. $70 billion. We are already in over our heads in debt. And thinking that giving more people more money is going to help the nation and help them is probably not true. I understand that the bill only allows for the money to be spent on wealth generating things or education. Understandable, those wealth generation things include houses, which most people aren't buying houses anymore. You could say they aren't buying houses because they're burdened by heavy student loan debts. That may be the case. Or it may be the case that people are moving across the country to find the best employment, which they can take the $50,000 with them. But the reason why they're not purchasing houses is because maybe they just want to keep moving until they find the best job that they can, or they just like to travel and they'd rather rent. It's a lot easier to rent. You have a lot less responsibilities as a renter. My wife and I rent. It's a great thing. All we do is pay the utilities, pay the rent, everything else. If anything happens here, we're not responsible for it. They are. If we need a new door, if we need a new window, if something in the apartment breaks, we don't have to come out of our pockets for it. They do. Whereas if you have a house, you're paying a mortgage, you're paying the property taxes, you're paying the utilities, you're paying for garbage, all this stuff, and if something happens to your roof, your door, your window, nobody's coming to do it for you for free. You have to go do it yourself, which is more money coming out of your pocket. So houses are more of a liability than an investment. And for people to still think they're an investment nowadays, to me, is not really looking at the future, in that more people are renting nowadays for the very reason that it gives them flexibility, and they don't have to worry about the upkeep. They just have to pay their rent. And if you live in bad places where your landlord or the maintenance may be crappy, may not do the best work when it comes to upkeep, you could always move. When it comes to a house, you can't do that. And more than likely, people will never own their house. Their bank's going to own the house. And then they're going to sell that house, pay off the mortgage, which now, even though they sold the house, they just paid off everything they've been paying for 15 years, and now they're moving somewhere else and collecting more debt and not even owning their next house. They're just using the money gained after paying off the loan from their last house to get into a bigger loan for a bigger house and still not own that bigger and better house. You can make the argument that you don't own renting. Fair enough. But unless you have enough money to actually purchase a house outright, I don't think it's a smart thing to do, because you never own it and you're responsible for everything. So this line of thinking is not the smartest in my opinion. And also, this is just going to hurt people, and this isn't capitalistic at all. This is redistributing wealth. This is a socialist Marxist plan to say we're going to hurt the rich so that way we can help the poor. But in reality, the people who they want to hurt are those who pay the most in taxes. They're the ones who create the most jobs. They're the ones who create ubiquitous wealth. What I mean by that is constant employment, allowing for you to purchase your laptop, your smartphone, your TV. Income inequality has its benefits. It may not look good on paper. In reality, it is a beautiful thing. And it's a beautiful thing because it allows for new inventions to be made and developed upon. And if they're good enough, next thing you know, they'll be allowed to the masses. Cell phones, for instance, were incredibly expensive. They had in the car phones back when LBJ was a congressman, if I'm not mistaken, which was like in the 40s or 50s. And now you have cell phones in your pocket. Nobody had a phone in their car unless you were making pretty decent money. Now you don't need to make decent money to have a smartphone. Why? Because that's what markets do. If you just let them flourish, that's what happens. But in order for that to occur, you need to allow for wealthy people to invest in these products. You and I can't invest in these products because maybe you can, I don't know. But I know I can't. I can't invest in the next best smartphone or the next best TV or the next best computer or the next best AR or VR machine or game system because I'm not a millionaire. And if we didn't have those people to invest, then we wouldn't have the array of things we have in the market right now. So this idea for baby bonds is just not smart, because throwing money at the problem never fixes it. Never fixes it. What are you going to do when somebody gets the idea that spending $50,000 on their education is a good idea, so they go to school for something like an arts degree? Hey, I like art. I love art. I love culture. I love learning about that stuff. But is it really the best thing to spend your $50,000 on? And is that even an investment at that time? You may love doing it. Fair enough. If that's what you love to do, then I can't even knock you. Then you're doing what you love. You're not letting anybody else influence you. A beautiful thing. But you can't complain at the same time that you're not making enough money because there is no jobs. That means the market didn't want you to work in that field, and it just wasn't there. It probably wasn't the best thing for you to do. On top of that, that $50,000 going towards education isn't even going to be worth it in the future. I say this because professors and teachers hold all the power when it comes to schools and colleges. They really do. They're the ones who are filling your head with all the knowledge that you need to know, or that you want to know, depending on what you're going to learn. And they can easily go do that right now by starting a podcast, by starting a YouTube channel, by starting an online university. There are multiple things they can do without the school's help. And soon enough, these teachers and professors are probably going to realize that and capitalize on it. That's, once again, the beauty of the free market, in allowing people to do what they want to do and not regulating it, just allowing it to occur out of pure innovation. That's what helps create a better tomorrow, is to allow people to utilize their thinking powers to do something better. So this $50,000 thing doesn't seem smart. I don't even think it's going to, maybe it'll touch the floor. I doubt it. Maybe it will, and if it does, it more than likely will not pass. It's going to be a huge tax burden on the middle class and working America. It's going to hurt working and middle class America more than anybody else, although they say we're going to hurt the rich. They're not going to hurt the rich. The rich can afford to leave the country. The rich can afford to invest in other places than America. I can't. Maybe you can't either. Most of middle America, most of middle class America, and the working class America can't. So we're going to be the ones paying the burden. Now, the last thing to cover today is the lawsuit that was filed against President Trump and the White House against CNN. The plaintiffs were CNN and Jim Acosta. The U.S. District Judge in Washington, D.C. just ruled in favor of CNN and Jim Acosta to reinstate Jim Acosta's hard pass to the White House. And people are saying that this is a beautiful day for the First Amendment and journalism, which doesn't make any sense to me. I say this because Jim Acosta was still allowed in the White House. So was the CNN. Nobody was barred from it. Jim Acosta's hard pass was revoked, so all he had to do was just get a daily pass to still participate in the press corps. Also, CNN could have just put somebody else in Jim Acosta's place. They could have done that as well. Nobody was keeping them out of the White House. So to claim this is a beautiful day for the First Amendment is kind of a lie. And in a way, it sets precedent to allow Jim Acosta to have immunity for acting like a fool. That is why his pass was revoked in the first place. Because he was interrupting people speaking. He refused to give up a microphone, pushed a female attorney, a White House aide away from him as she tried to get the microphone from him. So he deserved to get his White House pass revoked. Court ruled in favor of it being reinstated. I think this is a stupid case and it was a waste of everybody's time. There was no issue with the First Amendment. There was no issue with the Fifth Amendment. So, yeah. But Jim Acosta will be back at the White House with a hard pass, although he was never barred from it once again. So that's the news for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday, and we'll see you again on Monday. Peace.